Hi, welcome back. Here Dr. K again, and today I'm gonna tell you more about one of the most useful resource in this class. In the past, I used to give my students schedules for lab and lecture, typically in a paper-based format, such as what you see here, right here. But oftentimes, I fail to put sufficient information due to space limitation. Also, sometimes things doesn't happen the way you hope to be. For example, some lecture takes longer, or there is some unexpected event, and therefore things need to be changed, which is very difficult with the traditional paper-based format. For this reason, today I will introduce you to the next generation schedule that I call the dynamic timeline. On your screen, you should see a Google spreadsheet, if you will. In the previous video, we talked about two different point sources, one coming from lectures and the other coming from lab. First thing first, there are several components that you see on this dynamic timeline. On the first column, it tells you the week number 1, which is the first week of class. And next to it, there is a date column. Okay, so this is the exact date. For example, Monday, this is the very first day of the semester. It's Monday. This is the day Monday, February 10, and that's fall into the week 1. Okay, and there's week 2, week 3, and so on and so forth. All right. This semester, I'm teaching multiple micro 20 sections. I have Monday, Wednesday double sections, meaning I have Monday lab and Wednesday lab, but they both share one lecture. So if you are in one of those two labs, you may want to pay attention only to this Monday and Wednesday section right here. Okay. Now I also teach Tuesday, Thursday single section. If you are in that class, you may want to pay attention only in this section right here, in each corresponding weeks. Okay, so here there's Monday, Wednesday over there, Tuesday, Thursday over here. At the same time, I also teach Thursday night lab only. So if you are in that section, you may want to pay attention only this part of each week block. Okay, all right. So now the next sort of group, if you will, is what I call the laboratory activity. This will tell you all the laboratory exercises that we will be doing in that week. For example, on Monday, my Monday lab section will be doing lab orientation, safety training, and we will dive directly into exercise 1 on your lab manual. This one is on the topic of microscopy, and then we will look at some freshwater microbes, which is exercise 5, and we will start exercise 6 on the same day. So it's a lot of things to do, right? But if you are on Wednesday lab, then we will only cover most of it, except we will not cover exercise 6 on that very first day. Now, if you are on Tuesday, Thursday lab, we split the lab into half in a way. So half of the lab will be done on Tuesday, which, as you can see, only half of the planned exercise, whereas the other half will take place on Thursday. Okay, if you are in this section, the lab always take place first in the beginning of the meeting time. Okay, so the lab happens first, and then we will follow that with lecture. Okay. Now, of course, if you are on Thursday, if you're in Thursday lab section, then you will be doing all of this for exercise. And this is true for all weeks. Okay, so if you look at the week 2 block, the second week block, you can see that Monday lab will have on holiday, President's Day, and that's actually the reason why they have to do ubiquity of bacteria, exercise 6 on week 1, whereas the other lab will start the exercise 6 on the second week, right? Okay. All right, so I hope that's clear with laboratory activity. This one also lists all the exercise number over there for your information. Now, the other big block, if you will, is lab opportunity. In here, you can refer to the orange table that we discussed in video 1. Here, you can see all the points in their respective due date. For example, if you look at week 1, there's nothing due on week 1, of course. You just get situated in the class, right? But starting week 2, you will have to do pre-lab quiz. If you remember from our previous video, the pre-lab quiz is an online quiz available on Canvas. It's open book, but you have only 5 minutes to answer 5 multiple choice questions. So the pre-lab quiz is always gonna be on Canvas, and they are due Monday by 8 a.m. So make sure you don't miss the deadline, because once you missed it, you cannot make it up. Again, once you missed it, you cannot make it up. Okay, so now if you look at week 3, so now we are on week 3, right? Week 3, now there is no pre-lab quiz. Instead, you will have your very first post-lab quiz right here. And remember, unlike pre-lab quizzes, post-lab quiz are in class, and they always take place the first 10 to 15 minutes of the lab time, and they are not multiple choice. These quizzes are a little harder, so make sure you prepare for them well. Okay, what topic will be included on the post-lab quizzes? Well, here you can see the topic that will be covered in the post-lab quizzes. So for example, on week 3, you will have your very first post-lab quiz. It will cover the topic of safety, microscope, and ELISA. Now, if you also look at this, so this is the post-lab quiz, right? If you look at from there, and at the same time, in the next column, you see there is pre-lab notebook check. So usually, as you guys are taking quizzes, the post-lab quiz that is, I will be checking your notebook. So when you arrive, you must turn in your lab notebook to me. I usually collect it on my desk, so you can just stack it on my desk. And then as you're taking your post-lab quiz, I will be checking your notebook. Okay, so again, if you're late, then you just have to miss that point. Okay, so be on time coming to the lab. So what do you need to include in the lab notebook check? Well, depending on which week we are talking about. So for example, for week 3, I will be checking for exercise 5, the drawing from exercise 5. So what is exercise 5, right? Well, you go back to your laboratory activity right here, and you can see exercise 5 is the freshwater microbes. So I just need to see the drawing for all organisms that you observe. Okay. Now, in addition to that, I will also be checking the pre-lab for exercise 6. Exercise 6, if you recall, will be done on week 2, but I will collect the pre-lab. So what is exactly this pre-lab? Well, I posted a guideline on Canvas, and we will also discuss this on the first day of class in terms of what I expect from your so-called pre-lab write-up. Okay, so anyway, but those are the topics that I will be checking. So again, week 3, I will be checking only for 2 things. One is the drawing for exercise 5 and the pre-lab for exercise. Let me give you another example. On week 4, for example, here I will be checking for more stuff. I will be looking for exercise 6 data table. Here I will provide class-wide data table, and you need to have that in your notebook because I'm checking for them. you also need to include pre-lab for exercise 9, exercise 10 and 11. You can combine the pre-lab together, and exercise 29. So I will be checking for 3 pre-labs. Okay, again, exercise 9, exercise 10 and 11, which can be combined, and exercise 29. Okay, so I will be checking for more stuff on week 4. So what topics are covered in the pre-lab quizzes? As I mentioned in the previous video, pre-lab quizzes always cover lab exercises that you will be performing in that week. For example, if you look at week 2 right here, you will be doing exercise 6 and exercise 5, some other potential lab activity over here, and therefore pre-lab quizzes on week 2 will only cover exercise 5 and 6. Let's take a look at another example. If you go to week 4, you will have your second pre-lab quiz. This one will cover exercise 8, exercise 10 and 11, exercise 9, and exercise 29. Okay, a lot of things. Okay, so make sure you have them ready, meaning you have the lab manual open and ready, as well as the lab handout that I made for you. One thing that's not on this table is the due date for the unknown lab report. That is because I collect the unknown lab report at the end of the semester, meaning the last week of the lab. Now that we have discussed the lab part of the course, let's move into the lecture part of the course, which is on the right hand side of the table, if you will. Unlike the lab part of this course, the way you look at the lecture part of this dynamic timeline, basically you have to focus on the day where you actually have lecture. If you are in Monday section, for example, right, you have Monday lab, but you have Monday, Wednesday lecture. In that case, for the lab portion, you just need to look at the Monday lab, but then for the lecture portion, you have to look at both Monday, Wednesday, because you have lecture in both Monday and Wednesday. Similarly, Wednesday lab, only look at Wednesday section of the lab, but then you have to take a look at Monday, Wednesday part of the lecture. Similarly, if you are on Tuesday, Thursday lab, then you have to look at both Tuesday, Thursday part of the lab as well as Tuesday, Thursday part of the lecture. Okay? Alright, so let's take a look at our first component of the lecture points, and that is the video assignment. Video assignment is available on Canvas, and they are always due on Thursday at midnight, I believe. And it doesn't matter whether you are on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday section, the video assignment will always be due on Thursday by midnight. Okay, let's take a look at the example here. So week 1, there is no video assignment due, but starting week 2, you have one video assignment, and as I mentioned, video assignment always due on Thursday. It doesn't matter whether you're on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. It's always gonna be due on Thursday by midnight. Okay. The next one would be concept map. Okay. The guideline for concept map has been posted on Canvas, and I will also talk a little more about it during our first day of class. Okay. And the chapters for concept map are listed on the table. For example, if you are on Monday, Wednesday section, I will only be collecting chapter 2 concept map on Wednesday lecture. If you are in Tuesday, Thursday section, however, that week, meaning week 2, I will collect concept map for chapter 2 on Tuesday and concept map for chapter 3 on Thursday. So make sure you get them ready. Now let's take a look at one more example. In week 3, if you are on Monday, Wednesday section, I would be collecting chapter 3 concept map on Monday and chapter 5 concept map on Wednesday. Now if you are on Tuesday, Thursday section, I will collect chapter 5 concept map on Tuesday and chapter 22 concept maps on Thursday, and so on and so forth. They are all listed over here. Okay, let's take a look at the next lecture component. Here, the next one is the discussion section. This is in-class discussion where you will be working in groups to solve challenging problems. I have not put the dates here yet because as of the making of this video, I am not completely finished. Besides, the date for the discussion section is tentative, meaning that it will change according to the pace of the lecture. Oftentimes, the pace of my lecture is slower than I plan it to, and in that case, the date for the discussion session will move around accordingly. Alright, so the last part is the exams. Okay, the exam is a big exam, 150 points each, and the very first exam is scheduled to take place on week 5 here. If you are on Monday, Wednesday section, it will take place on Monday, March 9. If you are on Tuesday, Thursday section, it will take place on Tuesday, March 10. So make sure you prepare for these exams. Now, if you scroll down, you can see here that I also indicate the week where you have your spring break. Woohoo! And I also have the indication for the last day to drop with a W, so make sure you check on that because I am not responsible from the class. Okay, if you fail to drop, and that's gonna be on you. Okay. Now, if you scroll even more down, you will see the schedule for cumulative final exam. Yes, I said it, cumulative. Okay, and if you are on Monday, Wednesday section, your cumulative final exam will take place on Wednesday, June 3rd. And if you are in Tuesday, Thursday section, your cumulative final exam will take place on Tuesday, June 2nd. Here. Okay. Alright, I hope I demystified the dynamic timeline, and I sincerely hope that this dynamic timeline will be your guide throughout the semester as you navigate through the microbiology class, the coolest class on campus. Stay tuned.